Today we are going to talk about a breaking and alarming development in the Middle East that has captured the attention of the entire world. Reports are spreading that Saudi Arabia has taken a bold and aggressive step, with suggestions pointing toward a declaration of war. At the same time, Israel has scrambled its jets into the sky, signaling how dangerously the situation is escalating. This sudden rise in tension between two powerful players in the region has raised questions about what really happened, why it happened now, and what it could mean for the stability of not just the Middle East, but global security as well. For years, Saudi Arabia has maintained a position as one of the most influential Arab nations, controlling significant oil resources and holding religious authority over the Islamic world through Mecca and Medina. On the other hand, Israel has long been a central figure in Middle Eastern conflicts, surrounded by rivals yet maintaining one of the most advanced militaries in the region. To imagine these two nations colliding directly is something that could reshape alliances, redraw regional lines, and set off a domino effect across multiple countries. The moment reports of Saudi Arabia moving toward war surfaced, international media quickly turned its focus to the skies over Israel, where fighter jets scrambled into the air in anticipation of possible strikes or defensive action. The reasons behind this dramatic escalation are complex. Saudi Arabia has historically positioned itself cautiously when it comes to Israel. While there has been indirect cooperation, especially concerning shared concerns about Iran, public hostility and political tension have never disappeared. In recent years, there were talks of normalization, quiet discussions under the influence of American diplomacy, and even small steps toward mutual understanding. But now, with talk of war in the air, everything seems to have shifted overnight. Analysts suggest that internal political pressures in Riyadh may have forced the Saudi leadership to adopt a much more aggressive stance. Others believe that external pressures, such as rising regional instability and the situation in Gaza, have created a tipping point. Meanwhile, Israel's scrambling jets is not just symbolic. It is a concrete demonstration of readiness for immediate conflict. Israel's Air Force is one of the most advanced in the world, with cutting-edge F-35 stealth fighters, sophisticated radar, and missile defense systems like the Iron Dome and David's Sling. Whenever jets are scrambled, it means the Israeli military sees a real possibility of attack, whether in the form of drones, missiles, or even air incursions. To see this response triggered by Saudi Arabia is shocking, given that the two countries have not been open enemies in the modern era the way Israel has been with groups like Hamas or Hezbollah, or with nations like Iran. The timing of this development is also crucial. The Middle East is already on edge, with ongoing violence in Gaza, heightened tensions along the Lebanese border, and growing friction involving Iran. The United States has tried to calm the situation, but American influence appears to be weakening compared to past decades. Russia and China, meanwhile, are looking to expand their influence in the region, often supporting players that challenge the traditional Western-backed order. Against this backdrop, Saudi Arabia's sudden aggressive posture and Israel's rapid defensive measures are more than just a regional story. They carry global implications. Observers point out that this escalation could be tied to deeper Saudi frustrations. For years, Riyadh has been trying to assert itself as the dominant power in the Arab world, but it has faced setbacks in Yemen, criticism for human rights abuses, and challenges from Iran's regional influence. With tensions in the Red Sea and Gulf waters increasing, Saudi leaders may have decided that demonstrating military strength was the only way to re-establish their dominance. Declaring war, or even signaling war, sends a powerful message not just to Israel but to the entire region. Israel, on the other hand, sees any move by Saudi Arabia as an unpredictable and dangerous shift. Israeli defense doctrine is built on the concept of preemption and deterrence. The country cannot afford to be caught off guard. That is why, even if Saudi Arabia's announcement is more symbolic than immediate, Israel must take no chances. The scrambling of jets shows a willingness to respond instantly to any provocation, and also acts as a warning to Riyadh that Israel is prepared for escalation. The world is watching carefully because the potential outcomes are alarming. If Saudi Arabia and Israel were to engage directly in hostilities, oil markets would be thrown into chaos, driving global prices to levels unseen in years. Energy-dependent economies in Asia and Europe would suffer severe shocks. Militarily, the United States would face a dilemma, as it has strong ties with both Israel and Saudi Arabia. Supporting one against the other could fracture alliances and weaken Washington's long-standing influence in the region. Meanwhile, Iran would likely take advantage of the chaos, possibly expanding its reach in Iraq, Syria, and Lebanon. Some analysts argue that this sudden move by Saudi Arabia may not be an actual full-scale declaration of war, but rather a strong warning intended to rally domestic support or send a signal to Israel and its Western allies. However, the risk of miscalculation is extremely high. History has shown that when military forces are mobilized, one wrong move, one misunderstood signal, or one unintentional strike can spiral into full conflict. The Middle East has seen many wars begin this way, with small sparks leading to uncontrollable fires. Another layer to consider is the Arab and Muslim world's reaction. For decades, Saudi Arabia has been under scrutiny for its relatively quiet approach toward Israel, especially while Palestinians continued to suffer under occupation and conflict. By taking an openly aggressive stance, Saudi leaders may be trying to reclaim their image as defenders of Palestinian rights and champions of the Arab cause. This could be aimed at silencing critics who accuse Riyadh of moving too close to normalization with Israel. However, such a strategy could backfire if the war spirals out of control and causes suffering among ordinary people. For Israel, the danger lies not only in Saudi Arabia's military moves, but also in the possibility that other nations or groups could join the conflict. If Hezbollah in Lebanon or groups in Syria and Iraq decide to act in support of Saudi Arabia, Israel could find itself fighting on multiple fronts. Even though Israel has advanced defenses, no country can sustain a long-term conflict surrounded by enemies. This is why the Israeli leadership is likely on high alert, not just militarily but also diplomatically, reaching out to allies in Washington, London, and beyond for reassurance and support. At the same time, Saudi Arabia has powerful tools of influence that go beyond its military. As the largest oil exporter in the world, it can manipulate energy markets to exert pressure globally. In times of war, even the threat of cutting oil supply or reducing output can send shockwaves across international economies. This gives Riyadh leverage that few other nations possess, and in a conflict with Israel, it could use this to gain backing or concessions from other states. The psychological impact of this escalation should also not be underestimated. Citizens in Israel are already accustomed to living under the threat of rockets and war, but the idea of direct conflict with Saudi Arabia is entirely new. For Saudis, too, the concept of engaging Israel militarily is something that has not been experienced in modern times. Fear, uncertainty, and the spread of disinformation could easily intensify tensions, making rational decision-making more difficult for leaders on both sides. Global powers will be forced to step in quickly to try and cool down the situation. The United States is the most likely mediator, but its credibility in the region has been challenged repeatedly. Russia may offer itself as a broker, especially as it seeks to strengthen ties with both Riyadh and Tehran. China, which has growing energy ties to Saudi Arabia and economic connections to Israel, might also push for stability. The danger, however, is that too many outside actors could complicate the situation further, each with its own agenda. The unfolding crisis shows once again how fragile the Middle East remains, despite decades of efforts to build peace and stability. Even when progress is made through peace deals or economic partnerships, old rivalries and unresolved conflicts can return suddenly and violently. The possibility of Saudi Arabia declaring war on Israel is not just a headline. It is a scenario that could plunge the region into one of the darkest chapters in its modern history. In the days ahead, the focus will be on what actions each side takes. Will Saudi Arabia follow its words with actual military deployments along Israel's borders or in neighboring countries? Will Israel respond with strikes, or will it hold back and try to use diplomacy to ease the crisis? Will regional and international players step up quickly enough to prevent the worst-case scenario? These questions will dominate discussions in capitals across the world, and the answers will shape the future of the Middle East. One thing is certain. This is a turning point. Whether it leads to open war or a tense standoff, The relationship between Saudi Arabia and Israel will never return to what it was before this moment. Trust has been broken, fears have been awakened, and the balance of power in the region has been disrupted. The world must now wait anxiously to see if cooler heads prevail or if the storm clouds of war will engulf yet